Good morning from Lille. Welcome to the Interreg Europe's week, indeed, a week dedicated to the lead applicants, where we as the program are covering different topics to help the ones who are preparing applications to submit during the third call of project proposals. So this week is a very busy week for us and for you, the ones who are joining us and working on the project applications. Yesterday, we met here at 10 o'clock and we were talking about the partnership. Today, we are talking about methodology. Tomorrow, we will be covering and talking about the finances. And the day after, we will talk about communication. Today, it's Tuesday, and our topic of today is designing project methodology. My name is Irma Strauskaite-Deni. I'm head of communication unit, and I will be your host today. Together with me in the studio, I will have my colleague, my dear colleague, Hassan Martinez, who is a coordinator for the projects at the unit that deals with the projects and the policy learning platform. Hello, Hassan.
Hello, Irma, and good morning, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Hassan, for joining us today and being ready to answer to all the questions our participants will be submitting via the Slido. You will be answering them live in the studio. Together with us today, we also have other colleagues from the communication team, Julie and Hannah, managing all what is related technically in relation to this webinar. Hannah moderating the chat. And also we have our dear colleague, Charo, who will be as well looking to the slide and answering the questions. Today's agenda is similar to what we had yesterday, to the ones who were with us yesterday, the ones who who were not there. A short presentation. We will be, after a very short introduction to the technical points, we will be watching two videos today about how to design the project methodology. Those videos were recorded some years ago, where our colleagues really picked up the most important points related to the project methodology and will be presenting them. After each of the videos, we will be back in the studio and it will be Hassan answering your questions live in the studio. And at the very end, we'll give you a few tips indeed on all support we are providing as the Secretariat to assist you, to support you to prepare a good project application, a successful project application. So we were talking about the questions and answers, and we were talking about this Slido. So a quick reminder to you that to ask the questions, to submit the questions, you need to join the slido.com. You enter with the hashtag project development, and you will be in the right, indeed, you will get a screen dedicated to our event where you should submit all your questions. We are monitoring those questions during the webinar and we will be answering them. With this short introduction, now you know what is waiting for you today. You know that we will be together for about 1 hour and a half till 11:30. We are always publishing our webinars, so all what you will see in the videos and also the presentations we're using will be published on our website, and you will receive an email after this webinar with all the relevant links. I can also see that discussions are happening very actively in the chat here. It's very nice to see many of you joining from Germany, from Greece, from Belgium, from Ukraine, from Hungary, from Romania, from Gran Canaria in Spain, from Magdeburg in Germany. Yeah, it's really, really nice. Many of you joining, and it's great to see your messages in the chat. So, after this short introduction, I think now we are ready and can go to the content of this webinar. And as we discussed, we will be talking about the methodology. And the first thing that we will do, we will watch the very first video related to designing the project methodology, and it's about the learning process. This video will be about 10 minutes, and after that, we will be live in the studio to answer your questions. So now let's watch the first video.
Hello, my name is Charo, and I will give you some tips to help you build your project methodology. The way you design your project methodology will define your learning process. So let's start by explaining what the learning process is and why this is so important in the framework of Interreg Europe. Now, the learning process is the exchange of experiences among European regions. This exchange is based on the identification, analysis, and transfer of good practices. Let's remember that Interreg Europe supports the exchange of experiences among European regions. That's why the learning process is the cornerstone and is at the heart of the program. The learning process will help you identify and analyze your territorial needs. All the regions participating in the project share the same challenges and issues related to a specific topic at territorial level. Thanks to the learning process, you will be able to identify these needs, and this will help you overcome your territorial challenges. That's why also the learning process, it's a catalyst. It triggers the change of your policy instruments. It paves the way towards the improvement of these instruments and therefore towards the improvement of your territorial situation. There are a number of activities that you can use in your learning process. At interregional level, meaning with the regions participating in the project with you, you can organize joint surveys or analysis or reports. You can also organize workshops, seminars, staff exchanges, even peer reviews, and of course pilot actions. At a more local or regional level, you can and you should organize meetings with your stakeholders to make them also part in this learning process. And of course, you can participate in the activities organized by the Policy Learning Platform to gain more knowledge that you can bring into the exchange of experience and this way enrich the process. Now let's focus a little bit on these pilot actions that I mentioned before. Pilot actions are implementation-oriented actions that are aimed at testing new approaches, new initiatives that you learned from others. You can request pilot actions from the very beginning at the application stage or halfway through your project at the midterm review meeting. There is only one limitation of one pilot action per region involved in the project. Therefore, if you requested this pilot action at the application stage and this was approved, you won't be able to request another one at the midterm review meeting. And also keep in mind that these pilot actions are part of the learning process. There are a number of requirements that you should keep in mind if you're going to request a pilot action. First of all, the policy relevance and durability of this action must be demonstrated, meaning at the end of the day, the objective, the purpose of a pilot action is to improve the policy instruments that you are addressing. Therefore, you should also ensure that the outcomes of this pilot action are mainstreamed or generalized through the policy instrument. You also should demonstrate the interregionality of your pilot action, meaning this action has been inspired by other regions participated in the project or else by the activities that are part of the exchange of experiences and should be integrated in the learning process and enrich and contribute to this exchange. Also, keep in mind that pilot actions are an additional activity that cannot be financed through the policy instrument addressed or any local, regional, or national funds. And last but not least, the testing character of pilot actions is an essential element of these activities. Remember that pilot actions aimed at testing new approaches are implementation-oriented activities, and therefore the testing character should be also demonstrated. Let me give you an example of what a pilot action is. Here you can see an activity that was promoted by the Bulgarian partner in the Citizen project. This pilot action was inspired by initiatives from the Spanish, Greek, and Portuguese partners, and is aimed at promoting a more efficient use of resources at urban level. So the action is about a do-it-yourself kit for vertical gardens in a urban environment. And the ultimate goal of this pilot action is to integrate these measures into the Sofia Green program for the period 2022-2023 if the action is successful. So as you can see in this example, we can identify all the elements that we mentioned before. The interregionality is there. The action was inspired by other regions involved in the project. This action is, of course, aimed at testing a new approach. It will be generalized through the policy instrument addressed by this partner, so the durability of the action is also demonstrated, and is an additional activity that cannot be financed by the policy instrument addressed by this partner or any other schemes or financial instruments at regional level. Let's talk now about how to organize your learning process. First thing is to have in mind the time frame that you will have for this. You will have 2 phases over the course of 4 years. The core phase, with a fixed duration of 3 years, and the follow-up phase with a fixed duration of 1 year. The core phase is dedicated to the exchange of experiences and ideally to the improvement of your policy instruments, while the follow-up phase is dedicated to the monitoring of the results that you achieved during the core phase, meaning to measure the impact that these results, these outcomes, have on the territory. Like I said before, ideally you should improve your policy instruments during the core phase. That means that if you actually improve your instruments before the end of this phase, you won't have to produce an action plan. However, in the case of those regions that cannot achieve a policy change before the end of the core phase, they will have to produce a brief action plan where they reflect the activities inspired by other partners or by the exchange of experience that they will implement in the region during the follow-up phase to improve their policy instruments. Now you will have more flexibility to organize and to design your activities during the follow-up phase. You will be able to decide on these activities and to sequence them the way you consider more appropriate. You will also be able to continue with the exchange of experience during the follow-up phase. But keep in mind that you should always remember the rationale of this phase. So the exchange of experience during the follow-up phase should focus on the improvement of the policy instrument, the impact of these improvements on the territory, and the implementation of your action plan. Now remember that no one size fits all. No matter how many recommendations or tips we give you today to build your learning process, in the end, it will depend on the size of your partnership, the type of partners, the policy instruments that you're addressing, and the topic that you're tackling in your project. So you will have to consider all these elements when designing your learning process. Now, when you start organizing your learning process, you will have to keep in mind 3 important things. The first one is to ensure the different levels of learning of the learning process. The second one is always focus on quality. And the third one, use an integrated approach to make sure you reach your project results. Let's start with the different levels of learning. Both at partner and stakeholders level, you will have 2 dimensions, the individual level and the organizational level. The individual level refers to the increased capacity of those individuals participating directly in the project. The organizational level refers to the knowledge that passes the individual and goes into the organization, increasing the capacity of the whole organization. The individual learning alone is usually not sufficient to achieve policy changes, to improve your instruments. So when designing your learning process, you should make sure that these 2 levels are covered by the activities that you're planning to organize throughout the exchange of experience to maximize the effects and the impact of your project activities. Second, focus on quality. You should ensure the good quality of the activities that you're organizing and that are part of your exchange of experience. So you have to pay attention to all the elements that are important in the before, the during, and the after of the organization of these activities to ensure the success and the good implementation of these activities. And finally, use an integrated approach. You have to ask yourself if the activities that you have in mind that you are planning for your exchange of experience will actually serve to your project purposes, if they will help you to achieve the objectives and the policy improvements that you set in your application form. So you can think of these activities as the ingredients and the learning process as the recipe. The way how you mix these ingredients is the learning process. How you sequence these activities is also important to ensure the success of your learning process. Even if we told you that no one size fits all, there are 3 commonly agreed steps that you should follow to ensure the integrated approach of your learning process. First one is the analysis of the territorial needs of the different regions involved in the project and valuable experiences that you can use in your learning process. The second one is to further analyze these experiences through the activities of the exchange of experience that we mentioned before, such as workshops, seminars, study visits, peer reviews, etc. And third and finally is to prepare the transfer of these good practices or initiatives that you learned from others into your own territories. When designing your learning process, you can go for a more simple approach with activities like workshops or study visits, or for a more elaborated approach with peer reviews, staff exchanges, or activities like this. Both approaches have proven to be successful, but remember that simple is beautiful. You don't need to go for a very complicated approach to succeed in your project. All the things I talked about are reflected in the application form. In section C.4, project approach, you will have to justify your methodology, your approach in the framework of your project. You will have to explain for both the core phase and the follow-up phase what are the activities that you have in mind, how are you sequencing these activities, who will be involved, including the stakeholders, and what is the purpose and the objectives of these activities. In section E, work plan, you will have to break down your activities per semester. You should be as specific as possible when describing your activities, indicating for each one of them what is the main topic that you're going to tackle, the objective of this activity, who will be participating, including the stakeholders, the location, the host. Any additional information that you can provide will be welcome. You will have to also indicate the number of good practices and policy learning events per semester. In case you have pilot actions, you will have to describe them in section D1.4. First, you will have to indicate what is the policy instrument that will be improved through this pilot action. In this section, you will have to describe the main elements of your pilot actions, those that we mentioned before. You will explain what your action is about and how this has been inspired by the other regions participating in the project. Then you will add information about how this pilot action will improve the policy instrument address, meaning their policy relevance and durability, how the outcomes of this action will be mainstreamed through the policy instrument. And finally, you will have to explain why this pilot action cannot be financed by the policy instrument addressed by this partner or by any local, regional, or national funds. And now that you know how to organize your learning process, I invite you to watch another video on how to evaluate your performance.
Welcome back to our studio. Thank you to our colleague Charo, who explained to us in this video about the learning process. She talked also about the pilot actions, about the duration of the project, and explained very well all the activities that can be planned in your project application. Charo today is with thank you very much, Charo. Charo today is with us, and she is also following your questions on the Slido. Together with me, we have Hassan in the studio, who is ready to answer your questions in the Slido. A quick reminder to everyone, if you have a question, if you want to submit, if you want we answer your question, you head to Slido, you put a hashtag project development, and you submit your question. Do not hesitate also to write your name so that we would know to whom we are answering the question. Hassan, Our colleague Chaho talked indeed about the learning process, about the activities. Could you tell us quickly, like where we can find more information? Like if we want to see like more details about all what you talked, where we should look for this information? Is
Yes, Irma. Well, we usually say that it's very important for applicants to have a copy of the program manual in front of them, because the program manual is the main document that will help them in preparing their project application. In particular, in section B, projects, there is this point 3, project development, where they will see all the elements with more detail and even more examples than those provided in the video, when we want to design our project methodology and our project approach. So I would focus mainly on section 3 point, let me check, I have the program manual here with me, 3.2.4, focus on the exchange of experience process, where all these elements of levels of learning, stakeholder group involvement, the quality of the activities are explained with examples that the people watching today can follow and can apply to their own applications. Of course, there is also in the application pack, they can also check the template of the application form, and there they will see for each section that Charo was mentioned, for example, section C, when they need to describe the project approach, what are the main questions that they should answer in this part, and how they will later on develop the project approach in the work plan of the application form in section E. So it's very important to have a good knowledge of the program manual, the different sections on project development, and also the different parts of the application form that they need to fill in when they want to explain how they are going to organize the exchange of experience process and how they will learn from each other through the activities that they will plan.
Thank you, Hassan, for explaining this. Indeed, in the program, we say that for us, the program manual, it's like a Bible. Indeed, it's all information we are providing, or we are answering the questions. We also ourselves look to the program manual. And Hassan, you also explained that it's also good to check the application form. All those documents can be easily found on our website in the apply section, together with all the detailed documents related to the terms of reference of the third call. Hassan, we have a few questions on the Slido. One of the question is, if the project decides to add 4 policy actions during the implementation, the budget shall be increased accordingly?
Well, I think that by policy actions, the person refers to pilot actions. So yes, now this is something that we didn't see in the video, because they can implement pilot actions from the application from the start, if the pilot actions are well defined and they contribute to the improvement of the policy instruments address. You can request from the beginning of the project pilot actions. Otherwise, you can wait until what we call the midterm review. So halfway through the project implementation, it will be possible to request pilot actions to the program. And of course, the estimated budget for the pilots is included in the program manual. I think it's between 40,000 and 140,000 euros per pilot action. There is this limitation of 1 pilot action per region. And we usually like to talk about budget starting from the activities. What is the testing that we want to implement? How are the activities that we want to put in action to do this testing, and based on this to build on the budget? What I wanted to say is that pilot actions should not be the main element of a cooperation project in Interreg Europe, because the pilots are kind of a secondary element. The most important is the exchange of experience, the learning from each other, sharing what are the good practices that every partner region will bring to the cooperation. So what Charo was mentioning in the video, the learning, the exchange of experience is based on the identification, analysis, and transfer of good practices. So this should be the main element of the project approach, of the methodology. And in addition to this, because we understand that sometimes this identification, analysis, and transfer of good practices is not enough to improve the policy instruments address, pilot actions can be requested, but also you need to explain how these pilot actions will be integrated into this exchange of experience. And based on what you want to test, then you will have to draft the budget accordingly. There is no specific budget line for pilot actions. This is part of the full budget of the project. There are some budget lines that are specific for pilot actions, like infrastructure and works or equipment, when you want to buy or invest in something that is needed for your pilot. But yes, the budget will be bigger for projects that will have pilots than for others that will not have pilot actions. I hope this answer the question more or less.
Yes, indeed, Hassan, you by answering to this question, you already presented what is the pilot action process. This is the other question we have in the on the Slido. Maybe there is anything additional to be added to what you just talked before to explain the pilot action process.
Yes, I was looking in the program manual. I have here I'm going to show it to you. I have here the program manual with me, my program manual that is always for all the policy officers and finance officers, always usually on their desk. And first of all, I would really encourage you to read the section in the program manual related to pilots. Is section 3212, pilot actions, what activities should take place under each phase. And again, you can request a pilot action if together with your partners, you have a clear idea of what you want to test in the region. So if it's well defined, if you already know what is the content of the pilot, and it's clear for you how, if the pilot will be successful, how you will integrate this pilot into the policy instrument address, you can request this pilot from the beginning at the application stage. What we recommend is that if you would like to test, but you really don't know yet what type of pilot you could implement, don't put it at the beginning. Don't put it in the application form. You will have time after 2 years of cooperation to request pilot actions later on, and we will give you the opportunity to request these pilots during the midterm review. And if you need additional budget, the program will provide you with additional funding to do this testing. So there is these two possibilities. From the beginning, if the pilot is mature, if the partners know already what they want to test, it's important to keep in mind that the pilots always have to have this joint character. At least you need 2 countries involved in the implementation of a pilot action. Usually it's one region testing what they learn or what would they transfer from another region. When all the partners would like to test the same approach, then by default this pilot is interregional because all the partners in the cooperation are involved. And again, you can request this pilot from the beginning or at midterm review, as long as you comply with the main core elements of a pilot action, meaning that it has to be interregional, it has to be policy relevant, it has to have a testing character, and also you need to explain that you would not be able to finance this type of testing with your own funding, with the local or regional funding. So as long as all these boxes are checked, then the program will give you funding for the pilot actions from the beginning. What happened in the first and the second call is that some projects requested pilot actions. These pilot actions didn't meet the criteria that the program defines, and then they were not the main element of the exchange of experience process, and the project was approved, was recommended, but one of the conditions was to remove the pilot actions because they were not yet ready, and to request them later on during the midterm review.
Thank you, Hassan, for explaining this. I see that Josephine from the city of Marburg she has a question. related to the pilot actions. And just to clarify, it's if the pilot action is not in the project starting from the beginning, is it possible to add it during the ongoing project basis of the learning process?
Yes, of course. As I mentioned before, in the after 2 years of cooperation, during the midterm review, a little bit before the 2 years mark in the project implementation, we will meet with the lead partner and with the partners. We will discuss how the cooperation is going, if they are following the work plan, if they are progressing well in the objective to improve their policy instruments. And there we will discuss, okay, are you interested or is there any interest in doing some testing? Are you planning to submit a pilot action? And then for this, we will open a specific call, and then all the projects from the call will be able to apply and to request a pilot action that will be implemented in the second part of the project.
Okay, Hassan, I think now we dealt with all the questions related to the pilot actions. We always receive many of them. There are other questions on this slide though, and let's tackle then those. Elena is asking us, is it better to plan meetings, workshops in person or online?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question because after the pandemic, the way we work and the change fundamentally, there is today more online meetings. We still think that cooperation works better in person. You need to go to your partner regions to discover what they are doing, to meet the people face to face, to spend time with them, even if it's for 2 or 3 days, to do study visits, to know firsthand what are the experiences that are being implemented in the different territories. So we suggest to have at least one physical meeting every semester to meet with the partners, what we call the interregional learning events. But of course, there is no, as Charo was mentioning, there is no size fits all. Some projects do only physical meetings. Some projects make a combination of physical and online. For us, what would not be recommended is that everything happens online, because we think that it's important to go to the regions to meet the staff of the policy or makers and the organizations involved in the cooperation, and to see what are the experiences and the things that are happening. We think that this contributes and makes the cooperation more efficient when it comes to improve the policies addressed. But it's up to each project to decide how many. Our recommendation is to do at least one meeting with your partners every semester, to meet with your stakeholders also at local level every semester. The only thing is that sometimes we have also the opposite. We have projects that they plan too many meetings in one semester. They want to travel a lot. And sometimes we might question the feasibility, because we think that already to meet with a partnership of 7, 8 regions once per semester, it's already a lot of work. You need to prepare before the meeting, during the meeting to organize, and after the meeting to assess and to evaluate what has happened in this meeting. But sometimes 2 meetings also are possible. In some projects, there is also the possibility to do bilateral meetings. It's not all the partners meeting with each other. There is a moment in the project close to the end of the core phase where you want to just know more about a specific good practice that you discovered in Italy or in Norway or in Croatia, and then you will only yourself go and visit this country. So this staff exchange will be bilateral. We give flexibility to the applicants to organize the exchange of experience process, and this experience process can be organized in many different ways. Even though, as Charo was mentioning also in the video, we think that simple is beautiful, and we don't expect a exchange of experience too complicated with too many activities, that when we see that if it's logic, if it makes sense, this might be also penalized during the quality assessment of the approach.
Okay, Hassan. Carolina is asking us, we want to work on an issue described in the current strategy. It is valid for the local authorities for the period 24-30. Should the actions planned in the project concerned changing, improving the current strategy, or could it be action plan for creating a strategy for the years after 2030?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question as well. There is this part because the objective in the end of every project is to improve the policy instruments address in the regions. You will need to describe in the application form not only your territorial context, what is the issue address, what is the situation in the area where you are working. You will need to select also which is the best policy instrument to address this issue, this challenge, this problem. And also you will have to describe how do you plan to improve these policy instruments. And for this, you have different ways of improving the policy instrument. You can do it through financing new projects. You can do it by changing the way you manage this policy instrument or by changing the policy instrument itself, introducing new measures, new priorities. Usually, it will depend on the programming period. Maybe you are in a moment, if you have a 24, 2030, I think that since the project duration is 4 years, you will have, what is important is that you really need to improve the policy instrument by the end of the core phase. So 3 years after the project started. In the third call, the projects will start beginning of 2025. So by the end of 27, you need to improve the policy instrument. So in this case, it will make sense that you will improve the existing policy instrument. For some projects that already started before, there might happen that right now, when we are submitting our application, my strategy will finish in 2025 or in 2026. So the way you will improve the policy instruments is to work on the new strategy that will substitute the existing one. And as long as it's justifying the application form, this will be also possible. So it depends on the duration of the policy instrument and in which moment you will need to start the cooperation. But what you really need to keep in mind, what is important is that by the end of the core phase, and you need to show this in your approach, in your methodology, you need to demonstrate to the program that you will be able to improve the policy instrument address, and you will need to explain and justify in which way you plan to improve it.
Thank you, Hassan, for answering to this question. I can see that some participants are posting their questions also in the chat of the Zoom. Please use the Slido to post your questions using the link, the hashtag project development, and then you will be in the right, and you will get the right screen to post all your questions. I could also see that today we have one question related to the finances. Indeed, as our webinar today is, we talk about the methodology, the activities. So we're answering questions related to the topic of this webinar. The questions related to the finances will be answered tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we have a webinar and it's all about the finances. We will be talking about the different budget lines, how the budget should be constructed, built. So you will get an insight on this. And there will be also finance colleagues who will tackle all the questions related to the finances. Now, Hassan, we will be taking the last question from this Slido for now, before we watch the next video. And we will take the first one, which we see on the screen. Is it important that all projects contemplate activities to be developed in all the territories, geographically speaking? And do members have to participate in all activities? Or, for example, can 2 members participate in one activity and 3 in another? So indeed, it's about a question about involvement of the project partners in the activities. Could you clarify this, Hassan?
Yes, thank you for this question. I think that it was already answered by me before. What is important for you to keep in mind that the program finances the exchange of experience and learning from each other. So it's important that all the partners involved in the partnership benefit from the cooperation. So you should design your approach and your project methodology, taking into consideration that all partners should be involved at least in the main, what we call interregional events. What I was mentioning before, I think that at least at the beginning, during the first 2 years of the core phase, it's important that the partners meet together. Now, it's also possible that in a specific moment of the project implementation, for example, during the first 2 years, you organize these study visits, these interregional events in each participating region, and then in the last year of the core phase, in year 3, you want to go more into the detail of specific practices and do bilateral exchanges. So not all partners will go to other regions. It will be mainly based on the specific interest from each partner. So I'm from a region in Spain, and I discovered this amazing good practice in Germany. And in the last year of the core phase, I would like to do a staff exchange with the regional ministry for transport to know a little bit more in detail how they are implementing their sustainable urban transport mobility plan. And for this, because I'm particularly interested in, I don't know, electric mobility or transport on demand. And maybe the other partner that I have in Ireland will not be interested in the good practice from the German partners, but will be more interested in a good practice from Estonia. So for this, already some bilateral exchanges can be planned at the application stage, even if they are not fully defined when we prepare the application. In any case, our recommendation is that, again, it has to be balanced, the involvement in the activities. All partners should contribute and benefit from the cooperation, and all partners should be involved in the main activities of the project. Then, for some specific situations and according to the topic or the type of partners, there might be also some activities where not all partners need to be involved.
Thank you, Hassan, for clarifying this. Now, as promised to everyone, we will watch a second video. And after this, we will be back with Hassan in the studio to continue to answer your questions live. So in the meanwhile, when you watch the video, have the question, do not hesitate to submit it via the Slido. And our next video is about related to the project methodology. We will be talking in this video, our colleague Laurencio will be talking about how to evaluate the evaluation and the performance of the project. So let's now.
I am Laurențiu. In this video, we will talk about project performance evaluation and how to reflect this in the application form. The performance framework refers to a set of indicators put in place to measure the success of your project and also of the program. It derives from the intervention logic, and it reflects also the guidance of the European Commission for the programming period 2021-2027. As a measure of simplification compared to the previous program, the number of result and output indicator has been reduced. Why is performance evaluation important? The goal of your project is to reach policy improvements, and beyond measuring if the activities have been performed correctly, you will also need to measure if the results have been achieved. Capturing these achievements will help you measure the success of your project, but will also contribute to demonstrating the added value of interregional cooperation. When evaluating the performance of the project, 3 concepts must be taken into consideration: outputs, results, and impacts. Outputs are tangible deliverables which contribute to achieving the project objectives. The results are the immediate effects of implementing the project activities, while the impact refers to the medium and long-term effects of achieving the results. Performance is measured through indicators, and we have put in place 6 output indicators, 2 results indicators, and 1 impact indicators. We will deal with them one by one. The output indicators will be reflected in section C5 of the application form. The list is restricted to the output indicators predefined by the program, and their values are automatically calculated based on the data in different parts of the application form. For instance, the number of organizations cooperating across borders, counts the number of project partners, the number of associated policy authorities which are featured in section B, partnership of your application form, but also counts the stakeholders which are listed in section D of the application form. This is the policy instruments. Make sure that when you are filling the list of stakeholders, you allocate a single box to a single stakeholder. This way, the system will be able to count them. If we are talking about number of pilot actions developed, this is rather straightforward. It derives from the data that you have been inserted in section D of the application form, which is referring to policy instruments. The number of policy instruments address, of course, reflects the policy instruments listed in your application form in section D. The number of interregional policy learning events refers to this exchange of experience events, which include at least 2 partner regions. We are talking about webinars, workshops, study visits, staff exchanges, peer review, or other activities, but we are excluding the local activities such as local stakeholder group meetings or other local gatherings. This information, you will need to set it directly in the work plan, and the target values must be set for each semester. The same goes for the number of good practices indicator, which refers to the number of good practices that you plan to identify and share for each semester. Also, these target values need to be provided in section E, work plan of the application form. The things are a bit different when we are talking about the results indicators. We have a limited number of results indicators, only 2, and these refer to the number of organizations with increased capacity and the number of policy instruments improved. They are still reflected in section C5 of the application form, but the difference compared to the output indicators is that you will need to set the target value. How you will set this target value? By comparing the results indicators with the output indicators that correspond to them. For instance, the number of organizations cooperating across border will need to be compared with the number of organizations that have improved their capacity. At the same time, the number of policy instrument address will need to be compared with the number of policy instruments improved. Ideally, the ambition of the project should be to reach 100% performance. However, we notice that in reality, such a level of performance may be difficult to achieve. It is your task as project to set realistic targets for your results. Talking about impact, we only have one impact indicator. This is funds influence, and it estimates the financial impact of the policy improvements achieved thanks to the project. The impact indicator does not need to be set in the application form, and the estimative value does not need to be provided. The impact will only be measured through the progress reports. We hope you find this session useful, and we are looking forward to receive any question you may have on this topic. Thank you.
Welcome back to the studio. So now, after watching the second video related to the project methodology, you also know what indeed indicators to plan in relation to your project's performance. Now, together with Hassan, we are back in the studio to answer your questions live, the questions you submitted via the Slido. Let's have a look to them, Hassan. So, Catherine is asking us, is there a minimum or maximum number of activities project should address?
Well, Catherine, this is a difficult question to answer in the sense that it's up to each project. Depends on the size of the partnership, this depends on the number of regions involved. As I mentioned before, what we usually don't recommend is that you do too many activities, that this will put in question the feasibility. We say that sometimes it's too ambitious, and we don't think that it will be possible in 6 months to travel so much and to do 3 study visits plus 1 interregional event. So the minimum usually is one meeting with your stakeholders, one meeting with your partners every semester. And then depending on the moment of the project implementation, there can be more activities, but usually more than 2 physical events. And again, it links with the question before. If some activities are online, it's easier. We don't have to travel. But usually, if you are thinking about physical events, going to the regions, we recommend not to do more than 2 trips per semester. One is usually the best situation, and then maybe, as I was mentioning, by the end of the core phase, you can maybe do two study visits or do bilateral visits. But be careful when you propose your project approach, your methodology. This is the starting point. You need to think how you are going to design your exchange of experience process, and then how you are going to deploy this exchange of experience process every semester of the core phase and of the follow-up phase. We don't recommend to go to too many project activities, because this might be again penalizing in the quality assessment when we assess the action plan, saying that it's not feasible and it's not realistic to do so many activities. So again, simple is beautiful. Keep it simple, keep it to the minimum, and this is mainly my message to you when preparing your application.
Thank you, Hassan. I think now it's clear to everyone that all activities need to be adjusted to the project, and also we need to be realistic. Think what is indeed possible to do in each of the semester. Okay, Marco is asking us if does the project cover academic research activities aimed to define the best possible policy action? Is this possible?
Yes, this, Marco, is also an interesting question. We usually say that we are not a research or an academic program. We don't finance research activities. But if, depending on the topic, if the topic is too technical, we are talking about, I don't know, intermodality standards, or we are talking about, I don't know, energy efficiency or smart energy grids. And there is a moment where, based on the exchange of experience, we discover one good practice that needs adaptation to our territory, there can be some small study to support the transferring of this good practice to my region, but has to be very limited, and it has to be, again, have the objective to improve the policy instrument address, because research as research is not possible is not eligible to the program. We are a program that finances capacity building, exchange of existing experiences, and joint analysis, but very limited and with the clear objective to improve the policy instruments address. When you say define the best possible policy action, yeah, I don't see that this would be research. Would be mainly to see, okay, these are the good practices. Maybe we need a combination of these good practices with this other one, and we need some adaptation to my municipality or to my region. And for this, I need a university to support me in this transfer process. And for this, we need a small study. If it's justified, then yes. But in principle, we don't finance academic or research activities.
Thank you, Hassan. Next question. Please give an example of a methodology for learning exchange that might be more suited for a policy improvement instrument by new projects financed. Are differences in methodology if the policy improvement is done by one of the 3 types of policy instruments: new project, change of the management system, or the revision?
Yes, well, this is also a difficult question, because, as I mentioned before, it very much depends on the topic of the project. The type of partners is not the same that we are working with local authorities or with regional authorities. You can have an example of the different ways of organizing your exchange of experience, again, in the program manual. In page 43, you have an exchange of experience examples on real cases from our projects. But again, usually, as Charo was mentioning in the video, in the first video, The exchange of experience is based on the identification, analysis, and transfer of good practices. And these are usually the three steps that will allow you to improve your policy instruments with the different types of improvement, by financing new projects, by improving the governance or the way you manage the policy instrument, by changing the policy instrument itself. So in the first step, when we talk about identification of good practices, you need to discuss with your partners how and with your stakeholders what are the good practices that we are going to bring to the cooperation. We are going to do an analysis of the situation and selection of good practices that we can bring to our partners. For this, we can do a benchmark study between all the partners to identify the good practices. Then in the second step, the analysis of these good practices, we dive deeper into the content of good practices. We go into the different elements, why this good practice has been successful. What are the elements that I'm interested in transferring to my region? And for this, you might, to do this more, go more deeper into the content, you might organize a study visit. I go to the region, I go to visit my German partner, and I see on site how they are organizing this new transport system. And I discuss with the staff in charge of this initiative or this program in the German municipality. This would be the analysis. So, okay, each partner will decide what are the good practices that are interesting for me. I share the ones that I have, and then I will pick up which are the ones that are more interesting for me, identification. Then the analysis, I go more into the detail. For this, we can have also the support of the stakeholders, of external experts. We can do specific activities. And then the last step for preparing the improvement of the policy instrument, we can work with our stakeholders to select how we are going to transfer and what are we going to transfer. And this is the moment where we will maybe decide close to the end of the core phase, we need to transfer this, but we are not sure if this will work. Maybe we can request a pilot. So we do a testing to see if this idea that we discover in Germany will work in my region in Spain. So this is usually the normal logic of the approach. Analysis, identification, transfer of good practices. So by the end of the core phase, I improve the policy instruments address. But there are other different methodologies that we can use. There is people that is more advanced and they want to go more for peer reviews. They want to do apply a specific learning methodology that they have used in other in the region or that they have discovered working in other type of programs. So it will depend very much on the expertise of the partners, the topic, the type of partners, but you can find some examples in this page 43 of the program manual. You see it here. Well, I don't see if you can see it in the, so you have several examples there, and you can apply any one of them, which are real methodologies taken from the approved projects in the first and in the second call.
Thank you, Hassan, for clarifying it and also for reminding us that in the program manual there are many different examples we can also check, and all detailed information related to all all the topics we are covering during this week and especially of today's webinar. We have a question asking if the webinar videos will be uploaded of 2024, because on the website there are still links to the sessions from 2023. I can confirm that the webinar videos will be uploaded, will be indeed updated with the 2024 edition. And as you are attending this webinar today, you will also receive a follow-up email with all the recordings of this lead applicant webinar week. Next question, Hassan, for you from Kino. It's in relation to the indicators. So this question is related to the second video we watched where Laurencio was talking about it. And Kino is asking us in relation to indicators, if several interregional activities are organized at the same time, study visit, seminar, or workshop, do you count as one or you count the sum or you sum up all of them?
Yes, you can check. I would recommend you to go into the program manual in section 3.3, monitoring project performance. You have a definition of each output and result indicator that you need to take into consideration when you prepare your application. And when we think about the output indicator, interregional policy learning events organized, it's clearly written that back-to-back events are counted only as one. So if you travel to Greece and you have a 3 days meeting, and in the first day you do a thematic seminar, so you focus on the topic that you are addressing, climate change adaptation, for example. On the second day, you organize a study visit. And in the third day, you do a second study visit. All these 3 events that happen at the same place at the same time should be counted only as one. And I wanted to complete my question, the question that someone asked before about the steps to organize the learning process. Again, it's not only the way you will organize your learning process throughout the semesters, it's always very important in the approach that you take into consideration all the elements that Charo was mentioning, that you address the individual learning and the organization learning. Is not only about the staff involved in the activities, but how you bring what you learn in the activities to your organization by doing internal meetings, for example, with different departments, the quality of the activities that you know, more or less, you know, in your work plan where you will go, how you will organize these meetings, if it will be a thematic seminar together with a study visit, and also what Charo was mentioning as well, and opening this part, the role of the experts and the integrated approach, that the sequence of the activity makes sense, that this identification, analysis, and transfer of good practices is done in the right order. Sometimes we see that the approach, the people starts identifying good practices after 1 year, so we don't know what they are doing during the first year. They don't mention good practices until semester number 3. All the study visits take place in the last semester, and it's not clear that they will have enough time to incorporate what they learn in the study visits into the policy instruments. So this will put in question that they will achieve results by the end of the core phase. So go to the program manual, check this section on the exchange of experience process, and you will see also that in the application form, you need to answer 3 specific questions. So think always that we, the policy officers, as assessors, when we check your application, we see if you are answering the questions that we ask for each relevant section of the application form.
Mhm. Thank you, Hassan, for sharing this. I think it's for everyone very interesting to hear the insights of someone who is evaluating the projects, to understand like what is your logic when you read the project application, and you try to understand what activities are in the project. So it's also very useful to hear what should not be in the application form as well. Now I can see we have few more questions. Indeed, we have a little bit more time. So if you have questions, please do not hesitate to submit them via the Slido. It's almost your last chance to do that, because we are heading towards the end of our webinar. Hassan, from what I see on the screen, it's Doro who has a question to us, and I can also see that Doro was very attentive and attended our webinar of yesterday, where we were talking about what partners should be involved, and also heard very well our recommendations. So her question sounds as following. We have designed an approach that would require a vertical and interregional exchange learning involving national level and also a local level exchange. And this would require 2 partners, city and national authority, representing compliant policies. What about one region, one policy program recommendation? Do you have any comments?
Okay, so again, this depends very much on on the specific case, but to put an example, let's imagine that you are a region in Finland and you are addressing an investment for jobs and growth program, which are national programs. So you need the policy responsible authority of this national program. It's the ministry at national level. But this program is implemented in the different regions in Finland. So the partner in the project could be the region, the policy responsible, the associated policy authority or the policy responsible authority could be the ministry at national level, even though the regions as intermediate bodies can be considered policy responsible authorities. But let's imagine that we involve both the ministry at national level and the region, because both of them are crucial in the implementation of this investment for jobs and growth program. So both of them can work in the cooperation, or only one of them and the other one being an associated policy authority. But the most important thing that they need to keep in mind is that you can only select one policy instrument per participating region. Then it's up to you if both partners are involved, both organizations are involved as partners, or one is an associated policy authority and the other is a partner. And as an associated policy authority, they will have to be involved in the project activities in any case through the participation in the stakeholder group. So yes, it's possible. The recommendation is one region, one policy instrument. Then if you have two partners addressing the same policy instrument, this is possible. They will need to explain what is the relevance for this policy instrument and why they are participating in the project, what is the objective for them in order to improve this policy instrument address. I hope, Doro, that I have answered your question.
I think yes, Hassan, and thank you for doing that. Indeed, when we have such particular and very, very specific questions, there are also some recommendations we give. And what do we say in this case, Hassan?
Well, we you know, for each specific case, we are always there to help you. You can always send an email through the website to the program. We will be able to give you a specific question. So in this case, Doro, you will say, look, our policy instrument is this one. We want to involve this organization at national level and this municipality. Does it make sense? And we will say, look, yeah, based on the policy instrument, it makes sense. You don't need to involve the ministry because the region is already a policy responsible authority, or both partners can be involved in the cooperation. And then also we have this system, this assistance that we do, that when you have the application, more or less, you know your partners, you know the policy instrument, you have already decided how you want to organize your exchange of experience process. You have all these elements more already, you've been working with your partners in the application and you have these elements more or less decided. We have this opportunity that we give you that is called Ask for Feedback, when we will have a meeting with you in order to go through all the aspects that you need to take into account to have a successful application. So this is also a possibility, but in any case, as well, I think that later on you will talk about the Q&As that we organize weekly, recurrently. But for any question that you might, a specific question that you might have, we are always there to try to answer. So do not hesitate to get in touch with us.
Yes, thank you, Hassan, for reminding it to everyone that anytime you have a question, a specific question related to you, you can drop us a line. We also have a specific form on our website where you can submit your questions. We organize Q&A sessions. And as well, it's possible to ask for feedback, and you can see our colleague Hannah posted a link to in the chat, so you can find very easily all the direct links to all the support tools we are providing. Now, Hassan, as we were talking, there is one more question that came in, so let's have a look to that. How can the partners demonstrate the learnings when they do not develop an action plan?
Yes, it's also an interesting question. You demonstrate that you learn from your partners when you manage to improve the policy instrument. When because you discover something that work in another region and you transfer it to your region, and as a consequence, you improve your policy instrument by the end of the core phase. So this is the best. This is the result for us to improve the policy that you address. Then, as it's mentioned in the question, what happens when if even if I went to all these regions and I discovered very interesting good practices, and I work with my stakeholders to decide what is the best way to improve my policy instrument. Even with all these elements, I do not manage for whatever reason to improve the policy instrument address. It was more complicated than we foreseen at the beginning. We had regional elections and the government changed, and now we need to start from zero, or there is a staff changes or reorganizations, or for whatever reason, the end of the core phase is there, and we didn't manage to improve the policy instrument. It's okay. What we will ask you is to draft a short action plan, meaning that in the last part of the project, in the follow-up phase that will last 1 year, we will ask you to design a very short action plan, one action, in order to see if after the core phase, during the last year, you will be able still to improve the policy instrument. And we will monitor if you are successful by the end with this action that you have designed to catch up and to try to improve the situation in your region. But yeah, we will assess the learning based on the results. Even though sometimes when we talk about improving policy instruments, we know that it's not easy. This is why it's so important to have the policy responsible authorities involved. This ensures in a way that to do changes in the improvements in the policy instruments, it's easier. But sometimes it happens that even some projects will not achieve policy improvement, and as long as it's justified and explained, this is also, of course, fine for us. But we have many examples, hundreds of results and of policy improvements. There is also this nice publication from the program where you can read about all the success stories of policy changes in investment for jobs and growth and other types of policy instruments. And this also might give you ideas on what type of things you could do in your region thanks to the support of Interreg Europe, and together with your partners improve the way you do things in your different territories.
Hassan, the publication you are referring is the 30 stories publication, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we'll share the link also within the chat because it's true. It's really nice publication that gives a lot of very useful examples from the projects that were implemented in the previous programming period, and really is focused on the results of those projects. I have good news for you, Hassan, now. That was the last question indeed in Slido, so you did it well. You answered all questions on the Slido. Thank you very much for this, and thank you very much for being with me in the studio today.
Thank you, Irma, and thank you also for all the questions to all the participants. I would like to wish you good luck in preparing a successful application. Never hesitate to come back to us. We are there to help you, to answer all your questions with all the materials. And again, the program manual, you have read it carefully, and also the template of the application form, that this will allow you to understand a little bit what are the type of information that we request. And also it's very important in the program manual to know how we will assess your application, the different assessment criteria. When we talk about the approach, the methodology, we assess this in criterion 1. And then also in the criterion 4 when we look at the work plan. So there you will have all the questions that the assessors ask, as I mentioned before, and it's important that you understand all this when you discuss with your partners and when you prepare the content that you will include in your project application. So yes, good luck, and we are there to help you, and we hope that you will be successful in this third call.
Yes. So Hassan, thanks a lot for being here, to you and also to my colleague Charo, who was also monitoring all questions to the Slido. I stay here together with you for a few more minutes just to present you what tools for project development we have. At the same time, we are also launching evaluation for today's webinar. So on your screen, you will see the pop-up and you can leave the feedback about today's webinar. We are still running 2 more webinars this week, and your sincere feedback always is very helpful for us to see what improvements we should do for the next editions and for the next upcoming days, and also the next editions of such type of webinars. Now, on the screen, you can see the project development, the online tools. Indeed, it's a screenshot from our section called Look for Funding. And in this menu, it summarized very, very well on what the program is offering to you. Via our website, you can use our self-assessment tool and to see if your project in general is relevant to the program. It's a very useful form where you answer to the questions yes and no, and in case the answer is not what the program would expect from you, there is also a clarification or a specific notice to explain you what the program is expecting. There is the second button is about the Get Inspired. It's the section where you can find all our approved projects and also where you can find the project ideas other partners from all around Europe have. The button 3, share your project idea, would lead you to the section where you can share your project ideas with the others. Number 4, find project partners. It's a partner search tool where you can find organizations from other countries. In case in your partnership you are missing for 1 or 2 partners, it could be a very useful tool to search for additional partners to complete your project partnership. Number 5 is the tool we were talking, Ask for Feedback. It's the tool we are offering, a specific form we have on our website, which you can fill in and ask for a feedback. In this case, the Joint Secretariat reads the information you are providing. We also get information on how you want to receive the feedback in written or organize an online meeting, and we treat your request and provide a very detailed feedback on your project idea. It's a very useful tool because it helps you to indeed to get the feedback from the people who will be evaluating your project afterwards once you submit your project application, and to maybe to see what weak points they identify, so you can correct all those before even submitting your project application. And the number 6, apply for the call. It's indeed the section where you can find all information related to the third call, all relevant documents, and also the list of all additional tools and events we are organizing. Then we also have it's the week the week of lead applicant webinars we have, but in addition to this we are also or organizing the Q&A sessions where we have an appointment on the specific day, specific hour, and by registering you can submit your questions, and during those specific days our colleagues then are in the studio and answering your questions live. So the upcoming online Q&A sessions we have on the 26th of April, on the 17th of May, on the 31st of May. For the lead applicant webinar week, yesterday we were talking about the partnership. Today we were talking about methodology. Tomorrow in the studio we will have the finance colleagues that will be in the studio and will be talking about how to build your project budget, and will provide all the details. And on the 18th, Thursday, it will be again me back in the studio with my communication colleagues, and we will be answering all the questions related to communication. With all this, I think now you know where to get more additional information and what tools are provided by the Joint Secretariat to assist you. I think you heard very well the message from my colleague Hassan today, and also my colleague Laurencio, who was in the studio yesterday, that the main document for you to read, to consult, is the program manual, as we are also using it on daily basis. And as you know now that there are upcoming webinars, Q&A sessions, you can also ask for feedback. So do not hesitate to use all those tools and benefit from the support the program is providing you to make sure that your project application is as good as possible and your project is approved, and you would be indeed then joining the Intra-Europe programs projects community in 2020, to starting your project in 2025. With this, it's time to end our webinar on today. And I hope to see you I hope that tomorrow you will be joining our webinar on the finances, and that we will meet also on Thursday to talk about communication. So for now, I wish you a good day and hope to see you tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Bye-bye.